I will explain and demonstrate how to compose a piece of Krell music using any synthesizer, hardware or software. I shall also be a bit geeky, nerdy, pedantic and explain the difference between Krell music and a Krell patch. I think that's important because if we know where we're heading, it's easier to get there. If you're wondering what a Krell is, I'll explain that too. And towards the end of the video, you can hear my own Krell music composition. So what's a Krell? Well, no one actually knows what they look like. But they were a super advanced alien civilization which became extinct 200,000 years ago. They were, however, millions of years more advanced than mere humans. They're featured in what I think is one of the best science fiction movies of all time, Forbidden Planet. This was released in 1956 and it was remarkable for several reasons, but in this video we are only going to concentrate on one aspect, and that is the music. It was the first movie, or at least the first major movie, to have a totally electronic music score. Now, a few videos ago I did mention Forbidden Planet and its music. If you want to check that out, it's in a video called 17 Videos Everyone Who's Interested in Synthesizers and Electronic Music Should Watch. I'll pop a card up there and a link in the description. It is time-stamped and you can find the Forbidden Planet link near the bottom. In essence, the music score was produced by husband and wife team Louis and Bebe Barron. Now this was 1956, long before synthesizers had been invented, and Louis constructed his own oscillators and ring modulators, and they created the music using a combination of tape loops and tape manipulation. So you can probably get a vague idea of what the music was like if you haven't heard it. Now in the movie they play a piece of music which was created by Krell musicians. Now obviously it was created by the Barrons, but this is their interpretation of what futuristic alien music might sound like. So this piece of music is actually the only example of genuine Krell music that we have. The main point to note here is that this music was actually composed. It was created, assembled, produced, put together, however you want to think about it, but it was done deliberately by the Barrons. This is the sort of music we're going to produce. Now, if you want to know what it sounds like and haven't got access to the Forbidden Planet, as far as I know, this is still under copyright. Now, I'm not going to risk the wrath of the somewhat illogical YouTube copyright algorithm. If you want to know why I say that, check out this video for one of the most bizarre examples of copyright claims you have ever heard. However, some channels are braver than me, and I've found 3 channels which have identical versions of this Krell music. I shall link to one of them in the description so you can check it out for yourself. So what's a Krell patch? I've done a modest amount of research on this, but I wouldn't say it is anywhere definitive or even accurate. The first example of a Krell patch I can find goes back to 2012. A guy called Todd Barton created what he called a Krell patch on the Buchla easel synthesizer. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of that here, but I will leave some links to Todd Barton and the Krell patch in the description. Now, it was a very clever patch designed to emulate the sounds that were inherent in the Krell music. But the clever thing is it wasn't a stationary sound, it evolved over time, producing different sounds as it ran. Now, whether Todd intended this to be an actual Krell music machine or was simply using the name Krell as a sort of homage to the music in Forbidden Planet, I really don't know. But the patch is what we would call a generative music patch. Now, the term generative music, stick with me, we're nearly there. The term generative music was coined by Brian Eno around 1995, so a long time before Todd's patch, and he used the term to describe a system which would create constantly evolving sounds, whether hardware or software. Now, since then, and particularly since Todd's Krell patch, many modular synthesists have delighted in producing self-contained, continuously evolving soundscapes. It is one of the pleasures, delights and occasional frustrations of a modular system. So the important thing to note here, and this is why I wanted to make a distinction, is that the Krell patch is a generative music patch. It is designed to produce a continuously evolving soundscape, as opposed to Krell music, which was composed in the same way as a song or a symphony was composed. Phew! So, in this video, I will explain how to compose a piece of Krell music. Now, creating Krell patches is fascinating, but not the subject of this video. So at this point, I would really suggest that you take a listen to the Krell music. It's about 1 3/4 minutes long, so not long at all. But our aim is to produce a piece of music or soundscape with a similar vibe. Now, as you listen to the music, you will realize a couple of things. It doesn't really have a tonal center. Some people may call it atonal. It also doesn't seem to have any sort of form. There's no verse, chorus, middle, 8. But what it does have are segments of sound. Now, I've listened to this probably more times than is healthy. So, for example, there are a couple of drony bits which tend to form the backdrop, but you will also hear some sweep ups and some sweep downs, and there's a little percussive section which sounds a bit like electronic footsteps rather than a drum. So if you want to create a piece of music with this vibe, the first thing I would suggest is creating a palette of sounds. Now I'm going to hop over to the music machine and show you the sounds that I've selected for my Krell music piece. So this is Cubase, and I've put together several tracks which I hope will go together to produce a piece of Krell music. I'll run through the sounds for you. They are from several synthesizers, but they are all housed in Native Instruments' Komplete Kontrol. This lets me quickly browse through every single NKS compatible preset. If you want to know why I like Komplete Kontrol so much, it's because it saves me weeks of time. Check out the video in the corner. I'll put a link to this in the description. You can get a free copy of Komplete Kontrol along with some free synthesizers. The link to that is in the description of the aforementioned video. Right, let's get started. There are 11 tracks, I think, here. I may not use all of them, but I just went through some sounds and assigned them to tracks, so we'll see how it goes. So the first one is Evolve 2, which is one of Native Instruments. As its name suggests, it produces evolving sounds. This is almost an entire Krell patch on its own. I will probably use this as a bed, as a sort of drone sound. The next one is Moog's massive modular system, or at least Arturia's version of it. This is absolutely perfect for creating Krell sounds. This is a sort of sweep effect which I'll probably dot around the composition in various places. This is interesting. This is Blade by Rob Papin, NKS compatible. This is a very old version, maybe 4 years, maybe even older than that. So it's probably been updated since then. This is interesting because it has an XY controller, and being NKS compatible, I can control the XY controller from my Native Instrument keyboard. So you can create some really interesting, really great sounds with this. Here's another one from Blade. Probably dot these things around if I use them all. Oh, this is one of my favourite instruments, the Yamaha CS80. Again, Arturia's version. I just seem to have a particular affinity for this for some reason. Possibly because I actually got to play the thing back in the day for 10 or 15 minutes. If you want to know a little bit about me and the Yamaha CS80, I made a video about it. Check that out. There's a card in the corner and I'll put a link to that in the description. But I really like this. It can produce a whole range of different sounds, so this is vastly underusing it. And here is the Prophet 5, again Arturia's version. This is a nice sweep sound to it. This will probably fit in as a bed or a drone somewhere. And here's Blade again. A lot of Krell sounds here. More Blade. Nice spacey sounds. Some pads, some will just drop in here and there. More sounds to populate the composition with. And this is the token percussion sound. I tend not to use a lot of percussion in my pieces for whatever reason. I could have added more. I'm not sure if that would improve it or not. But there was only one percussive tight sound in the original, so I thought, well, I'll just use one. Now, obviously, I'm using software synthesizers for this, but every synthesizer will be able to produce sweeps and drones and sounds similar to these, which you could use in a Krell music composition. So once you have your palette of sounds, it's simply a question of arranging them in a pleasing form. Now, music does benefit, I think, certainly our ears, from repetition. So with the absence of a tonal scale or a musical form, I think repetition will help gel the piece together. So this is the final arrangement. This is what I did with all those sounds. I've color-coded the pads and drone type sounds in red. You can see they are continuous throughout. They overlap, some of them. All the other parts are scattered around. A little bit of repetition helps cement the idea in the listener's mind. Hopefully that's the idea. And at the bottom you can see the percussion part, which I have again scattered in just to keep some sort of sense of rhythm, continuity, repetition going. Now, I found this a really fun and interesting project to do. Normally I tend to write things with tunes, but I do find this sort of ambient soundscape is strangely interesting and quite beautiful sometimes. Now, of course, you can take this absolutely anywhere you want to go. I've tried to use sounds similar to those in the original Krell music piece. There aren't any filter sweeps or any buzzy sounds, and even sounds created with square waves, the hollow sound of a square wave, I didn't really think they fit into the Krell vibe. However, you don't have to be limited by my ideas of Krell music. This is a great way to experiment with sounds and putting them together and see if you can create a piece which is interesting to listen to. Now, I know this is probably not going to appeal to everyone, even if you are interested in synthesizers and electronic music. But the music example that I've linked to in the description is 1 3/4 minutes long. So I've also limited myself to producing a piece of music which is no longer than 1 minute 45 seconds. You, of course, can do as you wish with your Krell music composition. So here's my Krell music composition. It is accompanied by images generated by Dalle 2. I'm really not sure it knew what a Krell was, but it did get the hang of aliens and alien music, I think. I hope you found that interesting at the very least. If you do produce any Krell music or music of a similar ilk, please do leave a link to it in the comments. I would really like to hear it. If you're still with me and the Krell, thank you very much indeed for watching. And if you have enjoyed this video, I think you might enjoy these videos as well. I'll see you in the next one.